The 4 justices of the Supreme Court who voted against same-sex marriage today each wrote dissenting opinions, and you should take a look at them. It'll help you to understand the way they view our society. We're going to focus here on the Young Turks today on 2, the Chief Justice Roberts and the Chief Gasbag Scalia. First, Roberts, who said, "The majority's decision is an act of will, not legal judgment. The right it announces has no basis in the Constitution or this court's precedent. Just who do we think we are?" Did he say that same thing after Citizens United? I don't believe he said, who do we think we are?
Wait a minute. Now, the 5 justices that decided that you could do unlimited bribery of politicians. No. Kennedy, by the way, the same deciding vote that in this case voted for gay marriage, also voted in favor of allowing unlimited money into politics. He was the bad guy in Citizens United, and he said, if you give unlimited money to politicians and you spend unlimited money in politics, it doesn't even give the appearance of corruption.
Nothing.
Yet I don't remember Roberts complaining about runaway judiciary, that what are we doing here? Who are we? What about the American people? The American people, over 90% of them, thinks that money corrupts politics.
Yeah.
You 5 don't agree. You live on planet corruption is awesome, right? The rest of us, more people believe that money corrupts politics than almost any other issue. It's a much bigger agreement than on gay marriage or anything else, right?
Yeah.
And those 5 guys said, no, I don't know. I like it. Well, yeah, freedom is, we'll call it speech. Money equals speech. Wait a minute, money never equaled speech before. Now, before 1976, before the Supreme Court made that decision, there was no such thing. And that corporations are human beings. You made up all this crap. You unloaded it on top of us so that we lost our democracy. And you didn't complain then. You loved it then. But my God, gay people get to be equal to straight people? What are we doing here? Who are we? This is a runaway judiciary.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Well, his statement is a perfect example of projection, right? Because he says that the justices that are in favor of gay marriage are practicing their will. But that's what you do, right? You are willing to ignore the Constitution and the fact that we're all supposed to be created equal and treated equally to practice whatever conservative beliefs you have in discriminating against same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
Classic case of projection.
You guys can keep bringing up how many Americans support not having our government be flooded by money, but thankfully we're not ruled by 275 million unelected citizens. So here's more of Roberts. Understand well that what this dissent is about. It is not about whether, in my judgment, the institution of marriage should be changed to include same-sex couples. It is instead about whether, in our democratic republic, that decision should rest with the people acting through their elected representatives or with 5 lawyers who happen to hold commissions authorizing them to resolve legal disputes according to law. The Constitution leaves no doubt about the answer. Again, we could point back to other times, like with Citizens United, where he didn't just make stuff up, but he directly went against prior precedent that said that you can limit the influence of money in politics.
And the Constitution does have an answer. The Constitution, we decided through Marbury versus Madison, the original precedent set by the Supreme Court that the rest of the branches agreed to and followed, that yes, the Supreme Court gets to interpret the Constitution. Here they interpreted it with an incredibly reasonable decision that equal rights means equal rights for everyone. And they're like, how dare you? The Constitution does not allow for this. No, that's exactly what the Constitution allows for. They're monumentally full of crap when it interferes with their religion.
Yeah.
You know, you disagreed with my unelected sky god.
Yeah.
How could you do this to my Constitution? You're so full of it. You don't care about the Constitution, and you certainly don't care about the will of the people. Hey, you want to say 5 unelected, and you're one of the unelected Supreme Court justices. You're like, no, I wanted the 4 unelected Supreme Court justices to win, not the 5 unelected Supreme Court justices. Oh, what a great point of principle, right? That makes no sense at all. And if you say to me, hey, we shouldn't let 5 unelected justices dictate the law of the land, great, take away Citizens United. You got a deal? You want to do it? You want to do it?
How about Bush v. Gore?
You don't want to do it. When it helps you and your corporate buddies, you love it. You right? Okay. Then all of a sudden you love the 5 unelected Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, when it puts Bush in office, they're big fans of it.
Exactly. Political. We're talking about political? You guys shredded states' rights. Scalia was in that decision. He shredded states' rights with Bush v. Gore. He said, Florida, you don't have any you don't have any right to count the votes in your state. There's no decision more against states' rights than Bush v. Gore. Any 5 unelected justices made the most political decision the Supreme Court has ever made by definition. They decided who would elect the president, even though Al Gore got more votes, no question about it. And if you're talking about electoral votes, they did the recount. The press did the recount afterwards. By every definition, Al Gore would have won. But no, 5 unelected justices overturned the will of the American people. And some of those same guys have the nerve to complain about unelected justices in the case of this decision.
Then he needles you a little bit more near the end of his dissent, saying, celebrate the achievement of a desired goal, celebrate the opportunity for a new expression of commitment to a partner, celebrate the availability of new benefits, but do not celebrate the Constitution. It had nothing to do with it.
Wow.
Jesus.
Apparently he doesn't have an understanding of the Constitution, which is a little troubling considering he's a Supreme Court justice.
That's a good point. Eat your cake and I will rub it in your face too.
Yeah.
I guess.
You know why he says that? Because he knows he's on the wrong side of history. He says it. He says it a couple of different places. He talks about how, I know that, our dissent will not be looked upon favorably. That's right. Because you know you're on the wrong side of history. You know that at the end of the day, what we always decide is equal rights for all Americans. And you know that every Supreme Court justice that had voted against equal rights for different sets of Americans turned out to be the bad guy of history. And that's what you are, and you know it. But you're like, yeah, but it really offends my sky god. It really does. So Constitution and history be damned, justice be damned, equal rights be damned. I got to say no.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then you know who you are.
That's, I tweeted out, The Onion had one of their best headlines ever. It's just the pictures of the 4 justices who voted against it. And it was, conservative justices simultaneously realize they'll be villains in Oscar-winning movie someday. They're going to be at the end voting against it, and they're going to be overturned. It's going to be wonderful. Now let's turn to Antonin Scalia, who is a bit more feisty than Roberts. He says, but what really astounds is the hubris reflected in today's judicial pooch. Pooch? The 5 justices who compose today's majority are entirely comfortable concluding that every state violated the Constitution for all of the 135 years between the 14th Amendment's ratification and Massachusetts' permitting of same-sex marriages in 2003.
That's right.
Yeah, basically.
That is what happened.
You know, we've done that before with slavery. We've gotten it wrong for a really long time.
I love that argument. But we've been discriminating against gay people for a really long time. You're going to change things?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, that's your
you.
argument against allowing same-sex marriage. Wow.
So, under that same idea, and this is indisputable, that since the 14th Amendment passed all the way to Brown versus Board of Education, the Supreme Court had allowed, through decisions like Plessy v. Ferguson, that segregation was acceptable. So black people aren't really equal. They got colored water fountains. They have much worse education system. All those things.
Housing.
They decided to ignore the 14th Amendment. They were not going to give them due process. They were not going to give them equal rights. And the Supreme Court sanctioned it for a long, long time. So I guess at Brown versus Board of Education, Scalia would have said, no way. We've been discriminating against black people for time immemorial. So now we're going to give them equal rights like the Constitution says? Outrageous. This is a judicial push.
Yeah, I think he might have said that, yeah.
I can't believe that was his argument.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no. By the way, you got to read it. Even if you just read Scalia's portion, it's 9 pages long, but it's filled with stuff like this where he's not just attacking gay activists, gay supporters. He attacks the other justices just so boldly. The opinion, speaking about the majority opinion, is couched in a style that is as pretentious as its content is egotistic.
Projection.
He went on to say, he referenced, go ask a hippie. He wants to make sure that you know that he belongs in the 20s, perhaps the 40s. He says, hubris is sometimes defined as o'erweening pride, and pride, we know, goeth before a fall. But they're pretentious, by the way. He wrote that.
Who speaks like that?
He just attacked nonstop how they were trying to be poetic, they're trying to be faux memorable. They are being fucking memorable. We're going to be reading this for another 100, 200 years. It's a very important decision.
Ironically, he's being fairly melodramatic here.
A little bit, yeah.
Scalia said, the beginning of the majority opinion talks about how the Constitution protects a person's core identity. He said, if I wrote anything like that, he said, quote, I would hide my head in a bag. Yeah. Right? No, you write things that are far more pompous. They just said something very simple, like, hey, we should protect every American. You write things like, oh, I do declareth the pompous, the falsest, and the push and the biz. And fuck off. Who are you? You don't realize what a jackass you sound like. And the reason he does it is that he gives an intellectual veneer to his bigotry. So it makes him feel better.
Absolutely.
So he uses the fancy words and the fancy turn of phrase, which actually is not logical. We're not, you think you're impressing us like we can't understand those words? We also went to good schools. We know what those words mean.
I played Dungeons & Dragons. I know what goeth means.
So we read the same books. It's not like you tricked us. Yes, your underlying point still sucks. Your underlying point is, I know, but I don't want to give them equal rights. I know it says in the Constitution they should have equal rights, but really, we got to give them the right to marry one another and decide their expression. He thinks he's being cute, not just with the intellectual veneer, but he gives an example in his dissent about, the justices in the majority say that this is about freedom of expression. A core, even Scalia admits, yes, that's a core right as Americans you have. In fact, that's the excuse he used to give away our democracy when he said billionaires also have freedom of expression. They just express their feelings and their views by giving someone $100 million. They're just expressing their views, right?
They're American expressing their views.
Right, and you want to talk about an overthrow of the government. You guys overthrew our democracy, and you were among those guys, Scalia, in Citizens United. Okay, so he says, freedom of expression. But a marriage, and everybody knows that a marriage actually limits your expression if you have a wife. God, you're unbearable, man. You're Archie Bunker. And you think you're clever, but you're playing with people's lives. This is not a cute little thing like, oh, my wife doesn't let me speak as much. No, they're not allowed to visit each other in the hospital as they lay dying, as their partner, their lifelong partner, people they've been with 20 years, sometimes 50 years. They're not allowed to have the same visitation rights. They're not allowed to share their property with one another. They're not allowed to have all the rights that every other American has. And you think you're being cute with my wife doesn't let me talk, ha, 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 so this is actually against the freedom of expression. You put that in a Supreme Court decision, and then you have the gall to criticize the other justices for how they quoted Cicero and Confucius and actually try to make an intelligent argument.